As we have understood the significance of the Mudal Azhwargal, Poigai Azhwar, Bhudatta Azhwar, Pei Azhwar, and subsequently we also enjoyed the contribution made to the Tamil language, the interesting incidents that happened in the life of Tirumalizhai Piran or Tirumalizhai Azhwar. We are now going to go to understand the contributions made to the language, to the Bhakti Sampradayam by a duo, by the two Azhwars. One is an Acharya and the other is a Sishya, who is none but Swami Nammalvar and Madhura Kavi Azhwar. It is said once, while Madhura Kavi Azhwar was singing praises about his Acharya Nammalvar through these lines: Vedam Tamil Seida Perumal Vandar, Thiruvaimozhi Perumal Vandar, Tirunagari Perumal Vandar, Thiruvaludi Valanadar Vandar, Tirukkurugur Nagarnambi Vandar, Karimarar Vandar, Shadagopar Vandar, Parankushar Vandar. The poets in the Sangam region of Madurai objected. They said, how could you sing praises of a person and call him the best of the Tamil poets when we have not seen any of his works? Madhura Kavi Azhwar, with all humility, submitted the works of Nammalvar and said, well, I can always give all these works to you and ask you people to read through, internalize, relish, cherish the verses of my Acharya Nammalvar, but I am not going to do so. I am just going to write 2 lines of all the 1,000+ verses that he has sung, just 2 lines on a manuscript, keep it on that particular plate called a Sanga Palagai. It was said to be the days when if somebody had to prove their poetry is of extremely high quality, they would keep it on Sanga Palagai and wait for the magical plate to turn back and not drown the manuscripts. Here they wrote, here he writes, Madhura Kavi Azhwar writes, Kannan Kalalinai, Nannum Manamudayir, Yannum Tirunamam, Tinnam Naraname. So he says, to those who aspire to reach Paramapadam, please take refuge in the lotus-like feet of Krishna. As he wrote on the manuscript and put it on that particular slate, the slate bloomed with all other flowers and came back and gave that particular manuscript to the other poets, indicating that Nammalvar's Tamil and contribution was of the highest order. Well, who is Nammalvar, who is Madhura Kavi Azhwar, and how do we treat the both of them? One, they were a student and the guru. But how did they seem like? For which Bhagavad Ramanuja states, Bhashyakarar Anagaha Nityashatrughnaha Yendra Idakku Prameyamaga Sollakadil Sri Shatrughnaazhvan Perumalukku Nallananapadi Avanayalladu Ariyada Sri Bharatalvanai Alladu Ariyadapadi Anan Ennu Aruli Cheydar. While in Treta Yugam, Lord Rama is Paramatma himself and Bharata chose to serve Paramatma, who's Rama, directly. Shatrughna did not serve Rama like how Bharata or Lakshmana served. He served Bharata directly. So he did not serve the Lord. He served the Lord's devotee. Similarly, if all the Azhwars have sung verses on the Lord, including Nammalvar who has sung verses on the Lord, Madhura Kavi Azhwar went one step ahead and sang praises of Nammalvar who had sung praises of the Lord. So this set of Tamil Pasurams is called as Kanninun Siruthambu. Kanninun Siruthambinal Kattunna Panniya Perumayan Yennappanil Nanni Tengurugur Nambi Yennakkal Annikkum Amudurum Yennavukke. Madhura Kavi Azhwar states, when I think of my Acharya Nammalvar, it feels as if honey and other sources of sugar is already getting secreted in my mouth. Annikkum amudu oorum yennavukke. So where was Madhura Kavi Azhwar born? Madhura Kavi Azhwar was born in a place called as Tirukkolur. This is the kshetram where the Lord gives darshanam as Vaitamanidhi. So in this particular kshetram was present and born Madhura Kavi Azhwar. Madhura Kavi Azhwar, because of his work and in order to acquire knowledge, travelled northwards from the south of India. He travelled thousands of kilometers and reached the north of India, and as he was travelling Ayodhya after Badarikashramam, he noticed that one night he saw some blazing fire of light. He thought it must be forest fire. I have to go remove that forest fire, ensure that there is safety in that place. So as he went further, he followed that light. He crossed hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of kilometers, and as he followed that light, be it daytime, nighttime, he would wait till the night begins and would think, let's go back to the north, and that's when he would still spot that light. He would start continue following that light. And as he followed that light disappeared into a hole of a tamarind tree in the kshetram called Tirunagari. He was surprised. What kind of a light is this? What could this be? He thought. And that is when he saw a little boy of dark complexion with closed eyes meditating. The moment he saw this boy, something struck in the mind of Madhura Kavi Azhwar, and that was none but a question in deep philosophy that he wanted to ask, and to a handful of people whom he asked, they didn't have an answer to it. So he was worried who would answer this question of his, and when he looked at this little boy, he thought this boy had that effulgence and radiance, and he felt that this boy could answer. The boy hadn't opened his eyes. You know who this boy was? This boy was born as a result of the grace of Tirukkurungudi Vaishnava Nambi to a couple called Udayanangai and Karimaran. This boy was born in the month of Vaikashi in the nakshatram of Vishakam to the divine couple. And from his birth, this boy refused to do any act which any other normal child would do. What would a normal child do? A normal child would cry. Because it is believed in Sanatana Dharma that as a child, when we are in the mother's womb, we have Purna Brahma Jnanam. We will know who's Parabrahman and we will keep meditating upon him. That is how the posture of a fetus is also folded, and it looks as if the fetus is putting its hands together. Azhwar mentions this. Karuvarangattul kidandhen kaitoluden kanden tiruvarangan meyan tishai. When the Azhwar was asked, when did this devotion and love that you exhibit towards Paramatma begin? The Azhwar says, Karuvarangattul kidandhen. I was inside my mother's womb. That is when Kaitoluden Kanden Tiruvarangan Meyan Tishai. I saw the Tiruvarangam, I saw that great Sriranga Kshetram even while I was present in my mother's womb. Puranam says, Jayamanam hi purusham yampashyen madhusudanaha satvikaha satu vigneyaha savai mokshartha chintakaha. Mokshartha chintakaha, the one who wishes to meditate on the Lord, is the one who is being blessed by the Lord while he or she is in his mother's womb itself. So when the child is born, while he was in his mother's womb, full of knowledge, while the child is born, it is said that a vayu called shatam, which is a component in the air, will go and apply itself on the scalp of the child. And that is powerful enough to make the child forget what he or she has seen within the mother's womb. So the child, out of agony of forgetting, starts crying, and we are all very happy. We say the child has cried, so the child is born, is safe. But philosophically speaking, if the child cries, it means it has forgotten about the Lord. So our remembrance of the Lord is there within the garbham. While we are in our mother's garbham, when we are born, we forget. But here is a child born to Kari, Maran and Udayanangai, to whom Shatha, the Vayu, came and attacked. But the child said, see, I have to bring the quintessence of Rigvedam, Yajurvedam, Samavedam, Atharvana Vedam for the benefit of mankind. If you come and attack me, how will I be able to explain the quintessence of the Vedas? So do not attack me. Out of anger, the child kicked Shatam. Since out of kopa, that is anger, the child kicked Shatam. Shatam was kicked because of kopa. Shatha because of kopa. So Shatha Kopa is the name given to the Lord. So this child born to the couple refused to consume the milk secreted by the mother. He refused to consume milk. He did not cry, he did not walk, he did not talk. He just closed his eyes and would sit under the shade of the tree. So even his parents had to abandon him after some time. In such a scenario, the light had disappeared into the hole of this particular tamarind tree, and inside the hole of this tamarind tree was seated this boy. So Madhura Kavi Azhwar was surprised, and there was a question that was lingering in his mind, right? So he asked, Settathin vayittil siriyadu pirandal yattai thinnu enge kidakkum? To which the boy, for the first time in his life, opened his eyes and replied, Adu attai thinnu ange kidakkum. So he says, what was the question? If a Jivatma is there within a material body, Panchabhautika Shariram, what will it consume? The body consumes different kinds of food. What will the Jivatma consume? Adu attai thinnu, whatever karma is arising out of the good and bad deeds performed by the Jivatma inside the material body, the phalam of which is what will be consumed, he says. There is one verse by Vedanta Deshika who describes the beauty of Tamraparni river, banks of which, be it Nammalvar or Madhura Kavi Azhwar, were born. Mukta jalair janita pulinam shukti santana muktaihi tarapurnam divamiva tatas tamraparnim bhajetaha pratyasatya niyata vishadam pita sindhor maharshehe paniyam te parinamayita tatra mukta mayatvam. So it looked, when pearls were being held because of the slow waters of the river, it looked as if there were mounds of pearls and oyster shells. So to a moment, the celestials thought that the sky had turned upside down because these pearls looked like stars which are scattered in the sky. Manuvyasa prachetasa parisha darha kvachadiyam sudhasikta suktihi swayamudayam anvinchanti jane nirundyuhu kevindyachala vikatasindhya natajata paribhranta pangorupari yadi ganga nipatati. How does it matter who consumes the Ganga Jalam? How does it matter where the water falls? It has the association of Brahma's Kamandalam, it has the association of Vishnu's feet, it has the association of Shiva's Jata. So wherever it falls, it will bestow only auspiciousness. Similarly is this Tamil language. So Swami Nammalvar answered this question of Madhura Kavi Azhwar. That is when the association of Nammalvar with Madhura Kavi Azhwar began. And Swami Nammalvar describes the kshetram of Azhwar Tirunagari. He says, Onnum tevum ulagum uirum matrum yadumillavan nanmugan tannodu devar ulagodu uir padaittan. குன்றம்போல் மணி மாட நீடு திருக்குருகூர் அதனுள் நின்ற ஆதிப்பிரான் நிற்க மற்றை தெய்வம் நாடுதிரே. Why will you go to the gods of lesser powers like Indra, Chandra and so on, when you have the one who was present even when the world was not created? When nothing was created, Eka, he alone existed. So when you have this Lord who has no creator for himself, he is the creator of all creation, but he has a no creator for himself. So when you have such a Lord, why do you have to go to somebody else? Swami Nammalvar, he came up with beautiful verses, and those verses were compiled in the form of 4 beautiful prabandhams, and they are called Thiruviruttam, Thiruvasiriyam, Periya Thiruvandadi and Thiruvaimozhi. Parashara Bhatta states, Rishim Jushamahe Krishna Trishna Tattvamivothitam Sahasra Shakham Yodrakshim Dravidim Brahma Samhitam. The 1000 verses that we know, or the 1000 shakas that we know of Samaveda, have come to us in the form of an essence in the Tamil language called as Thiruvaimozhi. So here the 4 Vedas, Rig Vedam, Yajur Vedam, Sama Vedam, Atharvana Vedam, all 4 Vedas, they are not exact translations, but the essence of these 4 Vedas have been incorporated in 4 Prabandhams. This has been mentioned by our Acharyas. The first Prabandham, Thiruviruttam, is the essence of Rig Veda. Azhwars mentions this. Irukar mozhiyal neri ilukkamai ulagalanda thiruthallinai nilattevar vananguvar. Irukar mozhiyal, Irukar is Rik. Rikku mozhiyal, through Rig Veda the rishis venerate him. So Thiruviruttam is the essence of Rig Veda. Thiruvasiriyam is the essence of Yajur Veda. Why is it so? Because in this particular Thiruvasiriyam, time and again there is always prayer for Vamana Avataram, and it is in Yajur Vedam that Vamana Avataram is invoked time and again. Coming to the next Veda, which is Atharvana Veda, it is Periya Thiruvandadi which is the most important. The beauty is, if you remember, I had mentioned about the 3 Thiruvandadis, Mudal Thiruvandadi, Irandam Thiruvandadi, Moondram Thiruvandadi. But these are called by a certain name, Mudal, Irandu, Moondru, and then there is a Nanmugan Thiruvandadi, there is a Ramanusha Nuttandadi. But you will be surprised, of all the Thiruvandadi structures that we know, it is this Periya Thiruvandadi which is the least number of verses, but we call it Periya Thiruvandadi. It's an oxymoron. It has the least number of verses. It is called Big Thiruvaimozhi, Thiruvandadi, Periya Thiruvandadi. Why? Because there is one verse which goes like this. Azhwars has a dialogue with the Lord. Puviyum iruvishumbum ninnagatta. The entire creation that you see, O my Lord, is within you. Ninnahatta. நீ என் செவியின் வழி புகுந்து என் உள்ளாய் அவிவின்றி யான் பெரியன் நீ பெரியை என்பதனை யார் அறிவார் ஊன் பருகு நேமியாய் உள்ளு, says Azhwars. So he says, செவியின் வழி புகுந்து, how did you get inside my body? The Azhwars asks. He says, you have gotten through my ears. So the entire creation is within you, and that you has got inside me through the ears, and you have gotten inside me. செவியின் வழி புகுந்து என் உள்ளாய் அவிவின்றி யான் பெரியன் நீ பெரியை என்பதனை யார் அறிவார்? So the entire creation is in you, you have got inside me. Now you tell me whether I am great or you are great, because you are within me, so I should be greater than you, right? We may be wondering, sir, is it an act of devotion? No, it is an act of devotion. It's a beautiful conversation where Azhwars tries to convey the thought to us, the devotees, the astikas, that the Lord who is the creator of this entire universe, who is the Antaratma of our Jivatma, is within us. Do not keep searching for him everywhere else. He is within us. So this is Thiruvandadi, Periya Thiruvandadi and Atharvana Vedam. The 4 Prabandhas of Swami Nammalvar is akin to the 4 Vedas. Vedanta Deshika reminds us of this. आद्ये स्वीय प्रबंधे षठजिद अभिदधे संसृते दुस्सहत्वं द्वैतीयीके स्वरूपाद्यखिलमत हरेन् अन्वभूत स्पष्टरूपं तार्तीयीके सव्यकीयां भगवदनुभवे स्फोरयामास तीव्राम् आशां तुर्ये यथेष्टं भगवदनुभवादवाप्ति मुक्तिं षठारिहि. So Azhwars mentions of this. Now let's go to Thiruvaimozhi, which is the essence of Samaveda. There he describes the feelings that he has for the Lord by seeing himself as the mother to a girl, where the girl's mind and heart is completely captivated by the Lord of Srirangam. So the girl has fallen head over heels in love with the Lord of Srirangam, but there is no such meeting, physical meeting that has happened. So she is aspiring to meet him. That aspiration becomes into frustration, and that frustration becomes into depression, and that depression turns into crying. So she has been crying to attain the Lord. And here the mother is also trying to help her. And as she wants to help her, she tries to convey the description of the state of her daughter to the Lord. Kangulum pagalum kantuil ariyal. Oh my dear Lord, my daughter is unaware as to what is day and what is night, because she has been crying so much and her eyes have swollen so much that she is not able to distinguish between what is day and what is night. Kangulum pagalum kantuil ariyal kannanir kaigalal iraikum சங்கு சக்கரங்கள் என்ன கைகூப்பும் தாமரை கண்ணென்னே தளரும் எங்கனே தரிக்கேன் உன்னவிட்டென்னும் இருநிலம் கைதொழாவிருக்கும் செங்கையல் பாய்நீர் திருவரங்கத்தாய் இவள் திறத்து என் செய்திட்டாயே. Won't you bother about her? She is just crying thinking of the Lord. Please come and rescue her. So this is one pasuram. As we go further, in Nammalvar's life, there is an interesting incident that he thought of Krishna. He thought, Krishna, as a little boy, you happened to be tied to a mortar by Yashoda. How accessible you were, how humble you were. Though you are Paramatma, you are making yourself accessible to that lady in that cowherd clan. Understanding this, hearing about this, internalizing this, Nammalvar was unconscious for about 6 months, is what Guru Paramparam says. பத்துடை அடியவர்க்கு எளியவன் பிறர்களுக்கரிய வித்தகன் மலர்மகள் விரும்பும் நம் அரும் பெறல் அடிகள் மத்துரு கடைவெண்ணை களவினில் உறவிடை யாப்புண்டு எத்திரம் உரலினோடு இணைந்து இருந்து ஏங்கிய எளிவே, says Nammalvar. So Nammalvar's attachment to Krishna was universal. He says, உண்ணும் சோறும் பருகும் நீர் தின்னும் வெற்றிலையும் எல்லாம் கண்ணன். To me, whatever I eat, whatever I drink, whatever I chew is not the food, is not the water, is not the betel leaf. To me, everything is Krishna. Only if I keep thinking of him, I get energy. Otherwise, I lose. Well, while we are talking about the beauty of every language, we should understand from Bharatadesham we have numerous languages and dialects. Every language is beautiful. But when it comes from a historical point of view, Tamil happens to be one of the oldest spoken languages, just not of Bharatadesham but of the world, with its very, very well managed script, literature, and many areas of new excavation. It happens to be one of the oldest languages. Similarly, Sanskritam. But there was an objection raised in Tamil Nadu at that point in time, where people said that you cannot be singing in Tamil, which is not like Sanskrit, it's like any other local language. Vedanta Deshika defends Tamil and says, Bhasha Geetif Prashasta Bhagavati Vachanat Rajavachopacharat Sacha Agastyaf Prasutat Tviti Parijagrihe Bhumika Bheda Yogya Yattat Krityam Shrutinam Munigana Vihitaha Setihasaha Puranaihi Tatrasau Satvasimnaha Shatha Matana Munehe Samhita Sarvabhaumi. How does it matter if I sing praises of the king in a language that I know? As long as I am singing praises about him and the king is aware of it, that is more than enough. So how does it matter if I sing in Tamil or in Sanskritam? He asked Vedanta Deshika. Alvar, Nammalvar also has this habit of sending messages. While we are understanding the life history of Alvars, we should also understand the literature. He sends messages to the Lord conveying the point that he is in love with the Lord. So one of the messenger based pasurams goes like this: Amshiraya Madanarai Aliyattai Niyum Nin Amshiraya Shevalumai Avaven Nenakkaruli Vemshiraya Pulluyartarku Envidududai Shennakkal Vanshirayil Avanvaikil Vaipundal Yensheyumo. So this Swami Nammalvar, as he would dictate the prabandhams by having the Lord in front of him, they voluntarily coming to give darshan to Nammalvar and thereby him singing praises of them, those verses were compiled by Madhura Kavi Alvar. So he was the most devout, fervent scribe to Swami Nammalvar's great works. This Nammalvar later in his life is said to have given the Hamsa Mudra, a ring with the Hamsa's motif on it, to, as he gave that Hamsa Mudra, he gave it to Adivan Shatakopan, the first pontiff of Sri Ahobila Math. This has been mentioned here. Nijanagara Nibida Devatantara Nilaya Sambada Sankata Prashamana Paritoshita Hridaya Shatamatana Punipunga Vadatta Shriman Nrisimha Mathadipatya Nirvahana Chinna Hamsamudra Parishobita Karakamala. So Swami Nammalvar, his Prabandham is held as the most central to entire Sri Vaishnava Sampradaya. And on that Swami Nammalvar sang Madhura Kavi Alvar such beautiful praises that we will all keep remembering throughout our life. Now, as we have discussed Swami Nammalvar and Madhura Kavi Alvar, let us shift one state and go to this beautiful state of Keralam. In those days, though there was not a clear demarcation, it used to be called Pandya Keraladi Desham. So in that Kerala Desham was born a great king. He was called Kulashekara Peruman. And as he was called Kulashekara Peruman, people would remark, looking at him, that he was none but Rama because he was born in the star of Punarvasu. But to Kulashekara Alvar, the only thing that he aspired was to receive the benign blessings of Lord Sri Rama. Here goes the verse that celebrates the birth of Kulashekara Alvar. Kumbhe Punarvasu Bhavam Kerale Kolapattane Kaustubhamsham Dharadhisham Kulashekaram Ashraye. Vedanta Deshika brings the essence of Kulashekara Alvar in his Tamil verse. Ponpurayum Vel Kulashekarane Masi Punarvasuttelil Vanjikkalattu Thondri Anbudane Nam Perumal Shempor Koyil Anaithulagin Peruvalvum Adiyar Thangal Inbumigu Perunkuluvum Kan Manmel Kana Manmel Iruliriya Enduraitha Isayil Chonna Nanporul Sher Tirumoli Nooraindum Padum Nandraha Enakkul Sei Nalginiye. May the essence of this beautiful work called as Perumal Tirumoli last in my mind. So as he says this, he has sung two Prabandhams. A very unique Alvar is Kulashekara Alvar. He is the only Alvar to have sung in Tamil called Perumal Tirumoli, as well as in Sanskritam called Mukunda Mala. So in Mukunda Mala there is one verse which goes like this: Shattu Chedaika Mantram Sakala Mupanishad Vakya Sampujya Mantram Samsaro Tara Mantram Samupachita Tamas Tadya Gharga Niryana Mantram Sarveshwaryaika Mantram Vyasana Bhujaga Sandashta Santrana Mantram Jihve Shri Krishna Mantram Japa Japa Satatam Janma Saphalya Mantram. So he describes the importance of reciting the names of the Lord. And as he does this. At a very young age, Kulashekara Alvar, his mother, his father or people from the royal family did not bother to make him sleep. That is when Kulashekara Alvar later relishes the concept of lullaby, and in that he sings the best of lullabies to the Lord of Tirukkannapuram. Though the Lord of Tirukkannapuram is Krishna, Kulashekara Perumal, who was extremely attached to Rama, thinks for a moment that the Lord there is Rama and sings this beautiful verse. Manpugal Kausalai tan Manivairu Vaitavane Tennilangai Kon Mudigal Sindhu Vittai Shimpun Sher Kanninan Mamadil Pudai Shur Kanapuraten Karmaniye Yennudaya Innamude Raghavane Talelo. So he sings a lullaby to this Lord. Later he describes the emotions what Devaki would have had upon the separation of her beloved son Krishna, and who had to be the adopted son, who had to be nurtured by Nandagopala and Yashoda. So she describes what all feelings Yashoda would have had while looking at the pastimes of Krishna. முழுதும் வெண்ணெய் அளைந்து தொட்டுண்ணும் முகிழ் இளம் சிறு தாமரை கையும் எழில்கொள் தாம்பு கொண்டடிப்பதற்கு எல்கு நிலையும் வெண்ணெய் தயிர் தோய்ந்த செவ்வாயும் அழுகையும் அஞ்சினோக்கும் அந்நோக்கும் அணிகொள் செஞ்சிறுவாய் நெளிப்பதுவும் தொழுகையும் இவை கண்ட அசோதை தொல்லை இன்பத்து இறுதி கண்டாளே. He says, so this is a beautiful description of the motherly feeling what Devaki had. Later, while describing the Lord of Tirumala, he says, O Lord, if you are pleased with my devotion, give me that boon where, if at all there is another birth, I should be born as a fish in Tirumala. Well, the fish could be consumed by the bird. Let me be born as a bird. Then he says, if the bird has wings, it will fly away from this kshetram. So it will lose that unique fortune of staying in this kshetram. So let me be a stone. Let me be a thorn. Let me be a tree. Let me be the flower. Let me be the running waters. He describes everything and finally thinks, I should be that step. Kulashekara Alvar Padi or Kulashekaran Padi is what we describe, that particular step which is just in the eyesight of the Lord in the Sanctum Sanctorum. Because the Azhwars states, as devotees keep taking my name and walk on that step, the devotee's feet should touch my head. So it's called Kulashekaran Padi. After having said that I should be born as a fish, as a crane, as a tree, as a thorn, as a stone, as the running waters, as a step, he says, I shouldn't have asked for all of this because it is you who is Paramatma. We are subservient to you. How dare I had the audacity to ask what I should be born as? I should be anything in Tirumala. I will not say I should be this or that. He says, Ooneru selvattu udarpiraviyan vendeen Aanel Vendran Adimaithiramallal Kooneru Sangamidattan Tan Vengadathu Koneri Vazhum Kurugai Pirappene Thenar Poonjolai Thiruvengadat Chunayil Meenai Pirakkum. Meen means fish. Meenai Pirakkum Vidiyudaye Navene Minvatta Shudarali Vengadakon Tan Bumidum பொன்வட்டில் பிடித்துடனே புகழ் பெறுவேன் ஆவேனே பண்பகரும் வண்டினங்கள் பண்பாடும் வேங்கடத்து செண்பகமாய் நிற்கும் திருவுடையேன் ஆவேனே எம்பெருமான் ஈசன் எழில் வேங்கடமலை மேல் தம்பகமாய் நிற்கும் தவமுடையேன் ஆவேனே தென்னவெண் வண்டினங்கள் பண்பாடும் வேங்கடத்துள் அன்னைய பொறுக்குவடாம் அருந்தவத்தேன் ஆவேனே தேனார் பூஞ்சோலை திருவேங்கட மலைமேல் கானாராய் பாயும் கருத்துடையே நாவேனே. So he describes what all he should be born as. While the Azhwar expressed his interest to be anything on Tirumala. Where was he? He was in Kerala. What was he? He was a king. He had ruled his subjects really well with extreme care and love. He was a very, very qualified king. We may think that qualification and being in the political post are mutually exclusive, because if you're very qualified, why should I get into politics? And people who are in politics, are they qualified? But yes, we did have days when kings were extremely intelligent, very powerful, would fight the war, would be patron of arts and various other, they would construct temples. Rajaraja Chola, the king with the biggest naval fleet, constructed the Brihadishwara temple. So they had an eye for every art form as much as they were good at administration. So the only wish that he would tell his ministers that Kulashekara Alvar had was to visit the shrine of Lord Ranganatha in Srirangam. But imagine the king going on frequent pilgrimage tours, what will happen to the administration? The ministers wanted to stop him, so they would bring a few devotees in front of him every day so that he would stay back in the kingdom, take care of the administration, be hospitable to them, and then would plan for the next day. The next day again a set of devotees would be brought. So this has been put forth in a beautiful verse. Gushyate yasya nagare rangayatra dine dine tamaham shirasam vande rajanam kulashekharam. Kulashekara Alvar is either referred to as Kulashekara Alvar or Kulashekara Perumal. Why? Perumal in Tamil generally could indicate Lord Vishnu, but in specific, if you look at the commentaries, it will indicate Lord Rama alone. Kulashekara Alvar had extreme attachment and affiliation to Lord Sri Rama. He was born in the star of Punarvasu or Punarpusam, which is the nakshatram of Rama. So it did so happen that Kulashekara Alvar would listen to Srimad Ramayanam every day. One day the person who used to regularly narrate a Ramayanam could not come. He deputed his very own son to narrate Ramayanam. Looking at the interest level with which Kulashekara Alvar was listening to Srimad Ramayanam, the son of that narrator tried to dramatize the situation further. And that was that instance where Khara, Dushana and Trishiras, they had come in with an army of 14,000 Rakshasas to fight Rama, and Rama single-handedly had to manage them. Ekascha Ramo Dharmatma Katham Yuddham Bhavishyati, says Srimad Ramayanam. As this situation was being narrated by the narrator in a very dramatic way, Kulashekara Alvar was oblivious of the fact that they were living in a different time era and Ramayanam had already happened. But he immediately said, I order my army to now be ready with the horses and the cavalry. Let's all go to the Arabian Sea. For a minute, the narrator thought, what has happened to the king? Ramayanam has happened before. I'm just narrating. He thinks that those incidents are happening now. He started marching to the Arabian Sea. This narrator did not know what to do. He had overdone his job. So he went running to his father, the original narrator, and said what had happened. This father narrator went to that place and said, King, do not worry. The war has already gotten done. Rama has emerged victorious. Is it so? Won't Rama need my help? This narrator said, no, so everything is fine now. There's victory. Sri Rama Jayam. But Kulashekara Alvar was not convinced. He said, how do you know? And as he turned to the sky, he saw Sita in a very, very happy tone, happy mood, embracing Rama, who had emerged victorious in the war. So Kulashekara Alvar's attachment to Ramavataram is immense. There is one more incident where to bring about a separation of Kulashekara Alvar from the host of devotees that whom he would cater to every day, a group of ministers hatched a plan of putting the most valuable necklace of the king into the suitcases of the devotees and suddenly said, "Oh king, you have lost your chain, where could it have gone?" And then when the king was also clueless, these ministers said it could have gone to the bag of the Vaishnavas. That is when the king said, the Vaishnavas couldn't have stolen. The ministers said, "We say he has stolen." Why did they say confidently? Because they were the ones who took the necklace and put them into the bags of the Vaishnavas. So the king, Kulashekara Alvar, said, "I trust my Vaishnavas. I will not let you do any security check of my Vaishnavas' bags. I assure you that they wouldn't have stolen." How will you say that? The ministers asked. "Bring a pot, fill it up with virulent poison-bearing snakes. I will put my hand within. And if the snake bites, it means that the Vaishnavas have stolen. If they haven't, that means the Vaishnavas haven't. I trust my Vaishnavas. The snake will not bite me." He put his hand into the pot and nothing happened to him. So this is one incident telling or reminding us that how much of confidence and trust that we must have in our relationships, and especially with devotees. If somebody visits our home and later the AirPods are missing, what will be our conclusion? That person would have taken the AirPods. And when we do a proper search of our house, that particular AirPods will be lying between the pillows. So we may say, "No sir, I didn't go and ask him. I just thought he might have stolen." This very thought is enough in Sanatana Dharma for 700 janmas of us to bear that papam. So before the court of law, a physical evidence is required. I kill a person, I will be punished by the law. Let us say somebody says he thought he will kill that person, then law will not punish. Whereas in Sanatana Dharma, the karma theory states, even if you think, that is enough. So Kulashekara Alvar's life is an exemplification of how we must trust the devotees. And finally, he led a very, very simple life. He abandoned his kingdom. He led a very simple life. He went kshetram after kshetram, and finally the Jivatma of his parted away from the material body at Mannar Kovil in the southernmost part of Tamil Nadu. Let us now go to another interesting Alvar called as Periyalvar. Periyalvar, as the name suggests, was Periyalvar, big Alvar. By size? No, because he became the father-in-law to Periya Perumal of Srirangam. Who was Periyalvar? Periyalvar was a Vedic scholar who lived in a small hamlet called as Srivilliputturu, south of Madurai. He was a man of immense intelligence but extreme humility. His only service to the Lord, which was very, very peace-giving to him, blissful to him, was to make new, fresh garlands to the Lord Vatapatra Shahi, who was housed in the nearby temple. So, he was born in this kulam where his ancestors were also engaged in this particular kainkaryam, service of making beautiful garlands to the Lord. Who was he? It is believed that each Alvar is the incarnation of every possession of the Lord of Vaikuntham. Like how Sudarshana, Chakram, discuss is Tirumalizai Alvar. Shankam, Nandakam, the sword, and Sharangam and Kaumodaki were Poigai Alvar, Bhudatta Alvar and Pei Alvar. Like how Vishwaksena, the commander-in-chief is Nammalvar. Like how Kumuda, who serves Vishwaksena, is Madhurakavi Alvar. Like how Kaustubham, the resplendent gem of the Lord that shines on his chest, is Kulashekara Alvar. Like how the smelling garland, Vanamala, is Tondaradipudi Alvar. Like how the mole called Srivatsam is Tirpan Alvar. Like how the bow called Sharangam is Tirumangai Alvar. The Lord's celestial vehicle, the bird vehicle called Garuda, is Periyalvar. He was called Vishnu Chitta. He was called Vishnu Chitta for two reasons, the scholars opine. he was having Vishnu in his chitta. In his mind, he would always have Vishnu. And he was in the chitta of Vishnu, so he was Vishnu chitta. Whether it be the chitta of Vishnu, Vishnu chitta was there, or whether it is the chitta of Vishnu or the one in whose chitta Vishnu was there, he was called Vishnu chitta. So this particular Vishnu chitta lived a very, very simple life in Srivilliputturu. And the Shastric knowledge that he had was not because he was blessed with great gurus. It was there in him innate. Guru mukham anadhitya praha vedan aseshan. Narapati parikliptam shulkam adatu kamaha. Shvashuram amaravandyam ranganathasya sakshat. Dvija kula tilakam tam Vishnu chittam namami. I prostrate to that Vishnu chitta, says this particular shloka. He had immense love for Krishna avataram. So much so that he thinks that Krishna was born not in Gokulam or Mathura in the north of India, but in Goshtipuram or Tirukoshtiyur, a kshetram in the south of India. As he describes this particular incident of Krishna's birth, he says, Vannamadangal Shul Tirukkottiyur Kannan Keshavan Nambi Pirandinil Yennai Shunnam Yediredir Tuvida Kannan Mutram Kalandu Alaraitre. When Krishna was born and the news reached the inhabitants of Gokula, they all came running. They ran hither and thither. They had pipes filled with different colors, like how people would play Holi with that instrument. It's called pitchkari. And he says that people would mix the different colors with oil and they would spray on each other. Yennai shunnam yedir tuvida kannan mutram kalandu alaraitre, right in front of Krishna's house. There was only oil. They would come running, they would fall. Oduvar, viluvar, uhandalipar, naduvar, nampiran. Yenguttan yenbar paduvargalum palpare kotta nindru ஆடுவார்களும் ஆயிற்றாய் பாடியே பேணிச்சீருடை பிள்ளை பிறந்தினில் காணத்தாம் புகுவார் பூக்கு போதுவார் ஆணோ பாரிவன் நேரில்லை காண் திருவோணத்தான் உலகாலும் என்பார்களே திருவோணத்தான் உலகாலும் என்பார்களே. திருவோணத்தான். Lord Krishna was born in the star of Rohini. But here the Azhwars says he was born in the star of Shravana. Why? Only if he gives the wrong star, Kamsa will not be able to spot the boy, it seems. Attattin pattamnal vandudonni acchudan, says Azhwar. Later he says, Yashoda did not have the time to sing a lullaby for her son. She has outsourced that job to me. Let me assume that I am the mother of Krishna and let me sing the lullaby to Krishna. Manikkan katti வைரமிடை கட்டி ஆணி பொன்னால் செய்த வண்ண சிறு தொட்டில் மாணிக்கங்கட்டி வைரமிடை கட்டி ஆணி பொன்னால் செய்த வண்ண சிறு தொட்டில் பேணி உனக்கு பிரமன் விடு தந்தான் பேணி உனக்கு பிரமல் விடுதல்தான் மாணி குரளனே தாலேலோ வையமளந்தானே தாலேலோ. He sings for Krishna. Then he describes every stage of Krishna's birth, be it Krishna clapping, Krishna walking, Krishna eating, Krishna taking bath. So Azhwar's verses, especially Periyazhwar's verses, are drenched in honey. Well, if you ask me, sir, what if I do not know Tamil? What if I can't understand Tamil? Yes, there will be a problem in comprehending the quintessence of these Tamil verses. But why don't you take this as an opportunity to learn another language, that too one of the world's oldest languages, one of the world's oldest spoken languages. Take this as an opportunity. I am no expert in Tamil. I have also learned Tamil. Take this as an opportunity and learn. So today, the irony is, to those people who have been nurtured in the Indic civilization, the Vedic civilization, I am using English, which is a language of UK originally, to convey the thoughts of Azhwars who were Tamil speaking. So how beautiful it would be if each of us learn our languages. सोचिए कि मैं हिंदी बोलने वाला आदमी हूँ, घर में हिंदी बोलता हूँ, मेरे पापा और मम्मा हिंदी बोलते हैं, तो क्या मुझे भाषाएं सीखने में क्या दिक्कत है? आजकल तो इतने सारे टूल्स हैं. There are so many tools on YouTube. There are so many books. By a click, you get those books delivered, soft version, hard version. Learn a language. If you're Hindi speaking, learn 2 other languages. Maybe learn Telugu and Tamil. Let's say I'm a Telugu speaking person. ఎందుకంటే ఒక్కొక్క భాషకి ఒక సౌందర్యం ఉంది కదా. ద్రమిడ దేశం అంట ప్రఖ్యాతమైన ఈ తమిళనాడులో త్యాగరాజస్వామి వారు, శ్యామశాస్త్రి గారు, వారు సాహిత్యం, అన్ని సాహిత్యం తెలుగులో ఉంది. So most of the compositions of Tyagaraja and Shyama Shastri is in Telugu. But that shouldn't stop a music learning student from appreciating Telugu. We should learn. So many verses of Azhwar in chaste Tamil. So beautiful. When you relish, you'll get goosebumps. But for that you should learn Tamil. Tamil varadu sir. Romba kastam sir. Tamil namak varadu sir. How will Tamil come? When you can't respect that language, how will you protect Tamil and its culture when you're not learning its literature? Kannada ಮಾತಾಡಬೇಕು ಅಂದ್ರೆ ಬಸವಣ್ಣನ ವಚನ, ಪುರಂದರದಾಸರು, ಕನಕದಾಸರು ಅವರು ಬರೆದಿರೋ ದೇವರ ನಾಮ, ನಮಗೆ ಒಂದು ಭಕ್ತಿ ಬರಬೇಕಂದ್ರೆ ಒಂದು ರೂಢಿ ಆಗಬೇಕಲ್ವೇ? वो हिंदी हो, అది తెలుగు భాష, తమిళాగట్టం, కన్నడ, learn the languages. It's very very important. मुझे तमिल नहीं आएगा सर, मैं कन्नड़ नहीं बोल सकता हूं सर, तो क्या बोल सकते हो? So learn a language. We have the knowledge. We say we are human beings, we are better than animals. If we don't learn languages, probably animals should be given the opportunity and they should learn languages. So take this opportunity, learn the language, because how much ever I describe Azhwar's verses, if you do not learn basic Tamil, there is no use in listening at all. How much can I translate in English? So take this as an opportunity. Well, Azhwar describes Lord Krishna's every act. In his life, there is said to have been an incident that happened. The incident was, while he was living in Srivilliputturu, close by was Madurai, which was ruled by the Pandyan king. The Pandyan king, while he wanted to check on how his subjects were happy with his administration or not, went in a disguise. And in the night he saw one traveler who had travelled from the north of India staying on the streets. And this traveler was lamenting in Sanskritam. And the shloka goes like this. Varsharthamashtau prayateta masan nisharthamardham divasam yateta vardhakya hetor vayasanavena paratra hetoriha janmanacha. Paratra hetoriha janmanacha. So this passerby was telling, a human being, an average householder, works very hard for 8 months so that for the 4 months when it's extreme monsoon, he can enjoy. He may not be able to go out, he will be able to enjoy. Similarly, a devotee should work from day one of his birth so that the Jivatma leaves the material body and goes to the abode from where there is no return. So like how we all work hard for material pleasures in our life, we should also work for the spiritual pursuit, says this person. Listening to this shloka, the king has a change of mind and he waits for a beautiful court of scholars where there will be one final decision as to what is that way to go to that abode from where there is no return. So he invited scholars from different directions and they all came and presented different views, saying Indra is supreme, Varuna is supreme, Vayu is supreme, Yama is supreme, Agni is supreme, Ganesha is supreme, Lord Muruga, Kartikeya is supreme, Lord Shiva is supreme. That night, it is said that the Lord appeared in the dream of Vishnu Chitta and said, Vishnu Chitta, you have to go to Pandyan's court and argue. He said, sir, I am engaged in the simple service of making garlands for you. Why should I go? No, I command you, you have to go. So there was no other choice. So Azhwar left. He went there. He sang praises of Vishnu from various scriptures, so much so that the golden casket broke open and all the gold coins fell. The king was happy. He declared that Periyalvar should be given all the royal treatment and he was made to sit on an elephant and go by the streets of Madurai. And as Periyalvar was going, Periyalvar was able to visualize Lord Vishnu with his consorts witnessing his act of coming on the elephant. So he thought like a mother, oh, no evil eyes should fall on Vishnu, he's so beautiful. So he sang verses on the Lord in such a way that it was like a blessing on the Lord. Have you ever heard a devotee blessing the Lord? It should be the Lord who blesses us, right? So he sang Tirupallandu, which is a part of Periyalvar Tirumozhi. Pallandu, Pallandu, Pallayirattandu, Palakodi, Nooraayiram, Mallanda, Tinthol, Manivanna, Un Sevadi Sevvi Tirukkaappu. Adiyomodum, Ninnodum, Pirivinni, Ayiram Pallandu, Vadivai nin Valamarvinil, Valhinna, Mangayum Pallandu, Vadivar, Shodivalatturayum, Shudar, Ariyum Pallandu, Padaipor Pukkumurangum, Appandi, Sanniyamum Pallande. He sings. Thus, this incident made Vishnu Chitta the one who sang praises on the Lord as Periyalvar. Periyalvar is a personification of Krishna Bhakti is all we can say. Andal, the very daughter of Periyalvar, her life history is inspiring and is very popular too. It is said that Periyalvar, earlier Vishnu Chitta, now Periyalvar, who was engaged in the service of the Lord by making beautiful garlands for the Lord, was one day, while he was plucking flowers to make a beautiful garland, he heard the cry of a baby girl. He went and saw that it was a beautiful girl lying by the Tulasi plant. Thinking her to be the prasadam of Mother Earth herself. Sakshat Kshamam Karunaya, says Vedanta Deshika. He nurtured this child as his very own daughter. And she was called Kodai in Tamil, and in Sanskritam she is called Goda. This little girl was filled with Krishna Bhakti from the very beginning. Her outpouring, Periyalvar's outpouring, came much later in his life. This girl started singing praises of Krishna from her very young age. She wanted to marry him. Little girl. So how could she think of marriage? That's her choice. So she wanted to marry the Lord. So she propitiated Cupid, Manmatha. தையொரு திங்கள் தரை விளக்கீற்றி தன்மண்டலமிட்டு மாசி முன்னாள் ஐயனு மனக்கொண்டு தெருவணிந்து அழகநீர் கலங்கரித்த அனங்கதேவா உய்யவும் மாங்கோலோ என்ன சொல்லி உன்னையும் உம்பியையும் தொழுதேன் வெய்யதோர் கழல் உமிழ் சக்கரக்கை வேங்கடவர்க்கு எம்மை விதிக்கிற்றியே. And then she would construct castles, because it was a local tradition that if you construct castles and pray to the Lord, you will be blessed with a groom of your choice. நாமமாயிரம் ஏத்த நின்ன நாராயணா நரனே உன்னை மாமித்தன் மகனாகப் பெற்றாள் எமக்குவாதைத் தவிருமே காமன் போதருக் காலமென்னு பங்குனின்னாள் கடை பாரித்தோம் தீமை செய்யும் ஸ்ரீதரா எங்கள் சிற்றில் வந்து சிதையேலே. So while this was the thought process, from a very young age her Krishna Bhakti reached great heights. This Krishna Bhakti led her to do acts even without her father's knowledge. That was, every day while he would keep the flower garland for the Lord, Sri Vatapatra Shai of the close by temple ready, and then would go out to do his anushtanam, his daily rituals, she would adorn herself with the garland, look at her beauty in the mirror, check if she was beautiful, she would apply lipstick. You may be wondering, lipstick then? Kovvai Shavvai Tiruthi, the concept. Remember, the Indic civilization has been a great fashion-oriented civilization. We had beautiful footwear, we had nice dress. So it was not akin to many other thought processes where the women have to cover their body head to toe, nothing of that sort. We had hairdress, we had lipstick, we had beautiful jewelry. So Andal, she applied lipstick and she used to look at her beauty in the mirror, and before her father used to come, she used to bundle up that garland and used to keep it there so that the father wouldn't recognize. Her devotion to Krishna was so much so that she asked her father what should be done to get the groom of her choice. He said, you follow the same thing what Gopikastris did in Srimad Bhagavatam, which they all did, called a vratam called as Katyayani Vratam. Katyayani Mahamaye Mahayogin Yadishwari Nandagopasutam Devi Patim Me Kurute Namaha. Please give me the son of Yashoda as my husband. The girls would pray to Katyayani, make Krishna my husband. But there, to attain Krishna, they went through Katyayani. Andal made a slight change. To attain Krishna, let me go through Krishna. So she sang 30 beautiful verses, the world famous Tiruppavai. Margari Tingal Madinirainda Nannalal Neerada Poduvir Podumino Neridayir Sheermalgumai Padi Chelva Chirumirgal Kurvel Kuduntodilan Nandakopan Kumaran Yerar the Kanni Yashoda Ilam Shingam Karmeni Shenkan Kadir Madiyam Pol Mugattan Narayanane Namakke Paritharuvan Paror Pugada Padindelor Embavai. So the first 5 verses of Tiruppavai, she introduces the readers to this vratam, to this oath called as Pavai Nombu. Then as she continues further, she says from Pasuram 6 to 15, as a group, as a teamwork, we all have to go to the Lord. In Pasuram 16, she seeks the permission of the watchmen, the security personnel outside Krishna's house. In 17th Pasuram, she pays her obeisance to Mother Yashoda, to father-in-law Nandagopa, to brother-in-law Balarama. In 18th, 19th and 20th Pasurams, she invites the grace of Nappinnai or Neela Pirati, Neela Devi, whom Krishna was arranged to be married to. And then 21st to 25th Pasurams, she insists on Krishna's grace. And 26th Pasuram, she sees Krishna. She prays to him in 27, 28 and 29. And 30th Pasuram, she says this is the phalam, the fruit of reciting Tiruppavai. So as she expressed her desire to her father, the father was very reluctant because he was also upset about his daughter wearing the garlands. He spotted her. He said, you should have not done this, Andal. He goes and seeks remorse. He apologizes to the Lord, but the Lord in turn in the dream says, I love wearing the garlands which were earlier worn by Andal. Do that to me. I will wear only the garlands worn by Andal. At one point in time, she dreams of marrying the Lord. She expresses her dream called Varanamayiram to her friends. On one side this, Periyalvar gets a dream that the Lord wishes to marry Andal. He asks Andal, which Lord would you like to marry? She denies and rejects the Lord of Badarikashramam or Badrinath, citing the cold weather conditions. She says, I cannot marry Rama of Ayodhya stating that he's Ekapatni Vrata, he is vowed to marry only one lady who's Sita and not me. I cannot marry the Lord of Dwaraka because he's a big glutton, he keeps eating. I will not marry the Lord of Pandarpur because he stands on one brick and he himself is unstable. Where will he hold me? I will not marry the Lord of Guruvayur because if I am 2 feet in height, he is 1 foot. I don't know whether he'll carry me or I have to carry him. I will not marry the Lord of Parthasarathi of Triplicane in Chennai because he's got a big moustache. I'm worried about moustache. I will not marry Kanchipuram's Varadaraja because my concentration will not be on the Lord but will rather be on the silk saris of Kanchipuram. So which Lord will you marry? The father asked. I will marry the Lord of Srirangam called Ranganatha, and both of them were married. So this being on one side about Andal, let's go to another Alvar called Tondaradi Pudi Alvar, born in a small hamlet called Mandangudi, and his attachment to the Lord of Srirangam was heavy. He would not sing on any other temple. He sang 2 prabandhams, one to wake the Lord up. Wake the Lord up, yeah, because every time we sing that verse, we are woken up from our eternal slumber. It's called Tiruppalli Eluchi, akin to the Suprabhatam. The other prabandham is Tirumalai, which is very important for the Seva Sangam, the Bhakta Kotis who have organized this program, because Namasankeerthanam was central to Tirumalai prabandham. Draupadi, while she had to suffer in the court because of humiliation, it was the name of the Lord that protected her. It was the name of the Lord that protected the elephant while its foot was caught in the jaws of the alligator. It was the name of the Lord that protected Mudgala in Mudgalopakyanam. Namanu Mudgalanum Pesha, Narage Ninnargal Ketka, Naragame Suvargamagum, Namangal Udaya Nambi. So in this particular prabandham, he describes the beauty of the Lord of Srirangam. The Lord of Srirangam, the Moola deity, looks like the emerald hill, and his lips look like the corals. His eyes look like the petals of a newly blossomed lotus flower. Pachai Malai Pol Meni Pavalavai Kamalachenkan Achutav Amarare Ayartham Kurunde Yennum. After having had a glimpse of this Lord, Ichuvaittavirayan Poi Indiralogam Alum Achuvai Perinum Venden. I shall not want or desire Vaikuntham because I have seen Vaikuntham in front of my eyes at Srirangam, says Alvar. It is said that in his life, for a brief period, he was enamored by the beauty of a damsel called Devadevi. Devadevi had taken this as a vow, as an oath, to distract the Alvar, and she was successful. Eventually, she was so mesmerized by Alvar's love for her that she too fell prey. And when Alvar had lost all that wealth that he had and he had spent on her, there is said to have been an incident where one of the holy vessels of the Srirangam temple was missing, and the blame was thrown on the Alvar, and when the Alvar was put to guillotine, Devadevi comes running praying that he was innocent, and that is when the Lord is said to have told the king that it was me who stole the vessel. To prove the greatness of the Alvar, bring him back to the path of devotion. And Alvar felt that he had committed a grave crime of abandoning bhakti all these days while he was with Devadevi, the damsel. He goes city after city seeking the dust at the feet of devotees. He applies that to his forehead and becomes Tondaradi Podi Alvar, Bhaktangri Renu, who depends on the dust of the devotees. This being said, on one side, Tondaradi Podi Alvar is an exemplification of Sita, Ekastha Hridayanonam. Like Sita looked to only one direction where Rama was, his devotion was pointed to the Lord of Srirangam. Well, we are on one side of the banks of Kaveri. Let's go to the other side. And that Alvar is Tiruppan Alvar. The Alvar who is said to have sung the least number of verses, but his verses contain the essence of Veda, says Swami Vedanta Deshika. Pan Perumal Padiyador Padal Pattum Palamarayin Porul Ennu Paraviginnom. Palamarayin Porulamidu. The essence of Vedas is what is found in his verses. Tiruppanalvar was born in Urayur, the other side of Srirangam, and he was not born into a community that commanded too much of respect. While he stood mesmerized with the Lord's beauty of Srirangam, he had never visited the temple. He has just heard of the Lord's beauty by the passers-by. And while he used to be indulged and engaged in devotion, the haughty priest of Srirangam came, took one stone and hit on Alvar's forehead. Blood started oozing. The Alvar felt very bad and he said, "Priest, sir, please you go. I did a grave mistake by standing on your way." While the haughty priest went to the temple doors refused to open. The Lord said, "You have hurt my devotee, bring him here and then the doors will open." The priest ran, carried the Alvar on his shoulders and came running inside the temple. And as he walked into the temple, the Lord himself showcased his beauty head to toe, and part by part by part, Alvar started experiencing the beauty and started indulging into the yogic asana, yamam, niyamam, asanam, pranayamam, pratyaharam, dharana, dhyanam, samadhi, the Ashtanga yoga, and he started singing Amalanadi Piran Adiyar Kemmai Yaalpaduthiya Vimalan Vindavarkon Vidayarpozhil Vengadavan Nimalan Nirmalan Needivanavan Neelmadil Arangathamman Thirukkamalapadam Vandu En Kanninullanavu Kinnade. Oh, the beautiful feet that are akin to the lilies and lotuses get into my eyes. The beautiful calf muscle that bears the thin silk cloth of yellow in color looks like the rising sun amidst the green mountains. The thin hip that houses that little nabhi reminds me of Brahma who stands at the Yedil Vundi stands Brahma. And isn't this the place where Yashoda tied with that rope? Oh, the Vakshasthalyam, the broad chest reminds me of Mahalakshmi's seating. And the beautiful face of the Lord can give competition to the most beautiful moon-like countenance of this world. So he describes part by part, and by the time he is closer to the Garbhagriham, the Jivatma of Tiruppanalvar has left his material body. A short biography, very powerful. Hurting another devotee is like hurting the Lord himself. And finally coming to the last of the Azhwars, Tirumangai Azhwar. Tirumangai Azhwar sang many verses, and those verses are housed in 6 different compositions. Periya Tirumozhi, Periya Tirumadal, Shiriya Tirumadal, Thiruvalukkoottirukkai, Thirukurunthondagam, Thiruneduntondagam. And he is the Azhwar who is said to have travelled across the length and breadth of the country. Had it not been him, we wouldn't have had 108 Divya Deshams. It will be 40 or 50 odd plus. That's all. He made it 108 by travelling to the nook and corner of the country, right from Badarikashramam, Shalagramam in Nepal, Badarikashramam in Uttarakhand. He has sung on every possible Divya Desham. His life is a very different life. He didn't begin his life as a devout person. He was a chieftain under a Chola king. He ruled his country well. On his sojourn to his kingdom, he saw a beautiful damsel, Kumudavalli Nachiyar, walking out of the waters of a pond. He was enamored by her beauty. He went and proposed to her. She said, "Don't propose to me. You check with my parents. If my parents are okay, I'll get married to you." They agreed. Then he went back to her and said, "Marry me." She said, "I've got 2 conditions. You have to become a Vaishnava first. You are a king now. But get an identification as a devotee. Put the Shankha Chakra Lanchanam. Second condition, you'll have to serve 1,000 hungry Vaishnavas every day. It's called Tadiyaradhanam. You have to serve them. You have to serve them food. If you can feed them every day, then I'll marry you." He says, "Okay, fine." He got the Samashrayanam done. Every day he would feed 1,000 people. But where will he get the money from? He started using the government money. At one point in time, the king was very unhappy and he said, "You have to return the money to me." That is when he prays to the Lord. The Lord showcases some wealth on the banks of Vegavati in Kanchipuram. He goes, digs, takes the treasure and gives that back to the king. Well, that promise has to still be maintained. Where will he get the money from? Then he becomes a dacoit. So he would steal from people, passers-by, and then he would use that money to feed the poor. And he started having his own set of people extremely talented in stealing. Nidalil Odunguvan, Maranuni Yeruvan, Nidalil Odunguvan, Tal Uduvan. These were the names of his assistants. One day, in order to correct him, the Lord and Sri Mahalakshmi come as a normal couple who are married with lot of jewels, and he manages to steal. Tirumangayalvar, he manages to steal. Parakala, he manages to steal. But there was one thing left, which was the ring that was put on his toe finger. So while he tries to bite and take it from the groom's foot, is when the groom touches his head and recites a certain mantra called Ashtaksharam. Om iti vyaharet, namaha iti paschat, narayanayet uparishtat, om ityekaksharam, namaha iti dve akshare, narayanayeti panchaksharani. So as this narration, this teaching happens, he receives enlightenment. And then he stops stealing. He goes kshetram after kshetram singing the praises of the Lord. And those verses get compiled. One of the beautiful verses. Kulam tarum shelvan tandedum adiyar paduttuyara vellam nirantarum seyyum nilvishumbarulum arulodu perinilam alikkum valam tarum mattum tandidum pettadayinum seyyum nalantarum sollai naan kandu kondeen narayana vennum namam. More than a mother who could shed her love on her children, I find something that can give me more solace, more affection, more vatsalyam, and that is the name of Narayana, Namasankeerthanam. And in his Prabandham, to students who are interested in mathematics and programming, there's a Pascal triangle-like format in the form of a chariot. It's called Thiruvalukkoottirukkai. So it will be sung as 1, 1, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 3, 2, 1. So it will go in that pattern. Oru kuralai. Irunilam Vendi. So this is a Kalichirama Vidnagara Pasuram. It will go in that format. It's a beautiful format. It's a Ratha Bandham. So if you put the numbers at the top, replicate it at the bottom, you will find the Lord of Tirukudandai, Kumbhakonam, sleeping in the middle. So these are all various forms of poetry. See, it will be mind-boggling to us, even before Shakespeare, even before Keats. We had a civilization where we discussed about Pascal's triangle, Aryabhatta talking about Chaturadhika Shatam, Ashtagunam, 4 more than 100, 104 into 8, Ashtagunam 8, multiply with 8, 832, add it with 62,000, Dva, Sashti, Ayutascha, and divide it by 20,000, you get 3.1416, which is the value of pi. While constructing a Yajnakuntam, just in the sake of describing Yajnakundam, they'll describe the value of pi. So as a civilization, we had umpteen knowledge, just that we were very bad at marketing and preserving. The blame is on us, not on them. So Azhwars were nothing but the exemplification of chaste, unadulterated, uninterrupted devotion to the Lord. Be it Poigayalvar, Bhudattalvar, Peyalvar, Tirumalizhayalvar, Nammalvar, Madurakaviyalvar, Kulashekharalvar, Periyalvar, Andal, Tondaradipudiyalvar, Tiruppanalvar or Tirumangayalvar, all the 12 Azhwars, and their devotion, which all was brought together in a beautiful system by Bhagavad Ramanuja, who is regarded as the 13th Azhwar. And their compositions together, which is the Nalayana Divya Prabandham, is the guiding light to how to be a humble Vaishnava, humble Astika, humble devotee. So I have been given this opportunity to speak by the devotees of Sri Gnanananda Swami. So I take this opportunity to thank you all, to thank all the organizers, especially to Arun, who was very, very humble, and he contacted me, and I felt that I should learn a lot from you all. This 2-hour or 2.5-hour session will not do justice to Azhwars. You will have to listen to days and weeks and months together. But nevertheless, let this be a good start. Any mistakes that I have committed should be forgiven. This is my ardent request to you all. Kavitarkika Simhaya Kalyana Gunashaline Srimate Venkateshaya Vedanta Gurave Namaha. Namaskaram.